Our show has begun. Welcome everyone to our special event, Lifelong Educators, focused on how we can help close the achievement gap by expanding access to online courses. We're here to dive into the effectiveness and equality that virtual learning brings, how to help all students access these lessons, and more. Our panel is made up of founders from the ASU+GSV Elite 200, cool. Plus, we'll dive into how the upcoming ASU+GSV conference can support our goals in this space. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. Extending course access to students at every income level, offering free and low-priced options while still turning a profit, tracking student progress to ensure courses offer measurable outcomes, and there will be lots more. Let's make the most of your time here. The chat is the perfect place to network with others and maybe even make some new friends. We've all made some friends here. Plus, use the Q&A box so our panelists can easily field your questions. Don't forget to switch the box above your chat from panelists and or in attendees to everyone so everyone can see your conversations. And be sure to join our Facebook community of cohort-based learners and inventors. So we're about to begin to close the achievement gap together. Before we do that, let's meet Dotan Tamir. He is the CEO of Click2. Dotan, that was a mouthful. How you doing?
Oh, good. How are you? Good to be here with everybody.
Yeah. Before we get going, we were doing some counting. We've got 6 countries. Dominica, where are you joining us from? Because you just kind of got on the plane a little bit late. Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you very much for the invite. I am joining from Mexico City.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
So
very happy to be here.
We're stuck at 6 countries because I'm in Mexico and you're in Mexico, but that's okay. 6 is a great representation. All good. So Dotan, talk about why we're here, and then we're also going to talk about and define the achievement gap.
All right. Well, this is probably our 20th or 21st show or something like that. We started just a few months ago when we like to bring up this discussion about digital education, online education. Josh, sometimes you call me the future man. I don't know if I like it or I don't, but I definitely try to think of a point of view of 5 years from now and where we're going to be at. And then when we looked at the group that we're part of, the Elite 200 companies at ASU+GSV, the conference in San Diego that's happening in just less than 3 weeks, we looked at the companies, and it's a very different group of companies than what you would usually see at a general conference. All of those companies, all of those people are passionate about making an impact, about making changes at people's lives. Yeah, through business and through technology, like a lot of other companies are doing, but we're doing something that is really affecting people's lives and growth. And I think overall, the advancement of humanity. And closing the gap is, we can do all that stuff and concentrate and focus only on the initial suspects, which are usually very nearby communities. But with digital, with online, I feel like we have the opportunity to make much wider impact. And look in 5 years, like thinking of how the world will look like in 5 years, I'm hoping that the world will be even flatter, that people all around the world would have equal access to this kind of learning, education, and growth. Sorry for taking so much time from the intro, Josh, but that was it.
No, it's important. We know you're passionate about it. You are future man. Some people on our team would call me past man because I do print stuff up, okay? And I print up articles because it's just more helpful for me to read them. And I think it's important that we define, at least in some way, what the achievement gap is. And I found I've known Learning A to Z for many years. When I started my tutoring company in 2007, I was leaning on the good folks at Learning A to Z to help. And I'm just going to read what they wrote here. What is the achievement gap in an article? This gap takes many forms. Basically, it's the variation in performance between what students are expected to have learned and what they actually have learned and mastered to date. When students are grouped together by race, gender, or socioeconomic status and compared in terms of academic achievement, persistent gaps and disparities can be observed and measured. So I think it's a pretty good definition right there. So we're going to start talking to our panelists. Our panelists are experts in reaching all types of students. They found great success in expanding their academies and courses to reach all class levels. Here's how we're going to do this today. We've got 4 panelists. We've given them all a question. They've got a few minutes to answer it, and then we're going to roll to some Q&A after each one of those questions is answered. So Raphael Nolden, he is joining us from Munich. Raphael spent time as a research physicist and post-secondary instructor before founding Amy.app, his own AI private tutor math company. Raphael, your question: how are you using AI to make tutoring scalable and accessible to all?
Thank you, and what a great question. So, as you said, I used to work in lecturing students and spent a lot of years working on curriculum development at a university as well. And what I really realized is that there's such a big gap or such a big challenge for students who are trying to get into this higher level of learning. And a lot of this comes from what they should have learned at high school. And it's almost impossible for a teacher or even a lecturer like myself to identify what those underlying gaps are. This is especially true with math because it's a very hierarchical subject where you need to know all these underlying levels to better learn the new ones. And the way our education system works is we just add more content on top all the time, but those gaps underneath don't get remedied. Private tutoring is super effective at doing, at solving this because a private tutor can sit down with a student, identify those gaps and fill them, and then a student can go on and learn. But there's 2 big problems for that. One is that there just aren't enough good private tutors around. And the second one, which is an even bigger problem, is that a lot of students just can't afford that. And so I thought about how can we help not just the students that I was teaching, but realizing that this is a much bigger problem. And I realized the only way that we could do that is to actually create a scalable private tutor, which was, affordable for everyone. So, anyone with a basic internet connection could have access to that really high quality education. And not just, for an hour a week or something, but around the clock, whenever and wherever they need it. And so this is exactly what we've been working on. And we've spent the last 5 years doing deep R&D work, developing this tutor. It takes on the kind of key characteristics of a human private tutor, but is scalable and accessible to everyone. So I guess to answer your question, how are we helping? We're working on, making this accessible to everyone in the world.
Yeah, Future Man, this must be music to your ears. Go ahead, Future Man.
Yeah, that's not my expertise, but I'm definitely, it fascinates me to hear about. And I'm wondering, Raphael, I'm sure that the technology is one challenge, one barrier there, but what other challenges? Like, to my mind comes the language barrier to make it accessible to. What other challenges are you facing? Maybe if there are any that are really specific to education.
Yeah, great question. So language is a big challenge, and a lot of investment in education, and especially education technology, is focused on English language or Chinese or a few other sort of big markets where there's a lot of money to be made. And unfortunately, those are probably the ones where there's really the best teaching resource available. And one of the things that we realized very early on was that we want to make learning math easy for everyone. And that doesn't just mean those people who fit into a nice, easy category. It's how do we make this really work? And so we built Amy from the ground up to make it so it's easier for us to make Amy work in other languages. And we developed a whole new language system that underlies how the language works inside Amy, so that it becomes much easier for us to actually just add new languages. And in time, we hope to figure out how we can make that really scalable. Bring a local community in and say, hey, look, you want this in your language, you can help us. It's not hard. And then the technology does the rest. So I think that's really important.
That's nice. We're going to roll math, a subject I was not so good into, Spanish, a subject I was a little bit better in, but getting better every day. Lily Hagen. Lily, welcome. Lily spent more than 10 years volunteering for an international nonprofit before founding Lingo Plaza. Very cool. An immersive and safe place for children to learn languages and connect with cultures around the world. So Lily, given your background is in nonprofit work, what are actionable steps we can take to close the achievement gap through leveraging online learning?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is so wonderful to just meet so many like-minded people. And, going back to your question, I'd say more than before any steps can be taken, right? It has to start with a mindset. And what my nonprofit experience have taught me, if anything, that it's all about the people, right? It's all about the community. When you're in a nonprofit, you're serving. And, I was lucky enough to be able to be placed in those places, right? I was able to go to different countries and be able as close as possible to what they're living. And it helped me gain some perspective, right? Because one thing is being here from afar, which is not wrong at all. But then another thing is the being and trying to live what they're living, right? So that being said, it has to be one purpose driven, right? And I believe that even the founders here and a lot of people right now, a lot of people in education are purpose driven. And it's something that has to be the main point. And for us with Lingo Plaza, right? My co-founder was actually someone that was part of a nonprofit. So we adopted that culture and brought it to Lingo Plaza, right? We know that language learning has so many benefits and it opens so many opportunities. However, it's still considered a luxury, unfortunately, and it's not accessible. And that is our mission. What can we do to bring this to students at an early age, right? So we can make an impact, right? But then you have to somehow balance. In our cases, we're a startup, we're a business, we have to keep our lights on, right? And be able to pay educators and provide high quality content. So I say my tips, and this is definitely not the solution that fits for all, but just having 3 things in mind. And if you have this as a priority, which is people, then you're able to think outside of the box. And you can come up with something such as, if it works for your startup or your educational entities, different streams of revenue, right? That maybe supports the impact that you're wanting to make. So maybe it's not directly through the service that you are providing, but maybe you have a stream of revenue to support that impact, right? And be able to empathize and be able to provide exactly what they need. So I say, the main thing for sure is the mindset, and that will help you be resourceful to back up the impact that you're wanting to make.
Lily, we spoke before, and we're gonna speak tomorrow again, I believe. So I'm very interested about how you're doing this and the actual sessions with kids. It must be very personal and engaging. And I'm wondering, because we're here speaking about the closing the gap, and what you're trying to really reach kids in many different areas, maybe areas that didn't have reached to such education before. Do you see any difference? Do you see kids accepting that kind of technology differently in different places? Or because my point of view is that kids are kids no matter where they are. So I wonder, how does it work with the technology-based education that you're doing?
That is a very interesting question. Yes, I said that, my experience comes from, as a student, as an educator, and now a mom, raising bicultural kids. So I see different needs from different, let's say personas, right? And I know language learning, it's a very intimidating thing, even for adults, let's be honest, right? It's putting yourself out there and being vulnerable, and it's not any different for kids. So you have to make something engaging, and we focus, personally, just talking about my experience, on the experience of the kid, on the journey, because language learning is not what we say a marathon, right? And a lot of the parents that come to us, they're looking for fluency. And for you to achieve that, you need to, study and be exposed to the language constantly. I am originally from Colombia. I'm still learning words in English and even in Spanish. So you know that it is something that requires time, consistency, repetition. Now, you need to get in the mind of the kids and what is going to make it enjoyable. Because, you know, as a mom who's raising bilingual kids, it tends to be there's a pushback from kids for sure, you know, because it's not what their peers are speaking or, you know, culturally talking. I'm from Colombia, obviously I want to pass that on. So you need to make this enjoyable experience. And there's one quote that I really, really love. And it's that when you have fun, I mean, I'm definitely phrasing this, but when you learn something and you enjoy learning, it's something that you will remember. And that's our mission with Lingo Plaza. When you enjoy the learning journey, it will stick with you. And because it becomes something that you're living, right? More than just knowledge, you're experiencing it. And that is our mission, our goal. And we're a step forward. I'm gonna say we're not there. We're exploring, and I believe it's a collective effort. And just being here, knowing so many people, they're heading that way. So yeah. I hope that answers your question.
I think Lily, it does answer the question. And it actually, you know, one thing you said, I wrote down, we got to get in the mind of the kids and they got to have fun and there's going to be pushback. Alan Cabello, Alan tries to get, I think, in the mind of adults. Okay. So Alan has worked in research, real world business, and educated other innovative business leaders. Now, he's combining all of his experiences to drive a research-based online academy called Sparkademy for corporate leaders to grow in, which I would imagine we're talking about adult corporate leaders. So that's why we're going from kids to adults. So Alan, your question, how do you track course progress and outcomes to ensure the lessons are working for learners from all backgrounds?
Thanks for the question, Josh, and thanks, Dotan, for having me here. So yeah, my name is Alan Cabello. I'm the CEO and founder of Sparkademy, and we essentially offer a mini MBA in innovation to entry to mid-level employees to large companies. We train people today in 58 different countries. So the background is by default, it's international. And when you work in a big corporate, say Siemens, and you're an entry-level employee in Germany, or you're an entry-level employee in Malaysia, it's a different background, different education, different. And so that's kind of how, for us, that's the diversity we're dealing with, which is language and kind of cultural and educational background. What we're proud of is that we deliver super high quality learning experience with super high level professors from Stanford, from Berkeley, Imperial, Google, to everyone around the world, and make that learning experience kind of measurable and trackable and allow them to see how they're progressing. How we do that is essentially we engineer our content, our program, to make sure we have very, very clear of skills that we're trying to teach, what are the learning objectives attached to those, and then what are the different ways that we're kind of trying to transfer those skills towards those individuals through different formats, and seeing which ones work better than others by attaching every single piece of content to an exercise, to an activity, and then back forward. So we're very, very data driven, and that allows us to see, okay, what content is working across the board, what content is not, how do we replace different things, what profiles are better suited for different types of content. And kind of, and we're doing this globally. And we see differences from company to company, context matters, but also country to country, different areas. We work with people from procurement and accounting to engineering and operations. So that's what we're trying to learn how people learn. That is our number one objective, because the reality is we don't know how people learn today. We still don't know. So that's kind of what we're trying to collect that data.
How do you track course progress is basically what you do. So that's great. Let me ask you a little bit of a follow-up question. I think when we think of the achievement gap, we think of kids. When you think of the achievement gap, do you think of adults? And can you talk about how it relates to adults?
Overall, achievement gap is the standard in every corporate education program. Corporate education sucks. Let's face it. Nobody ever attended a corporate training and left there being like, wow, this is amazing. They're generally mediocre at best. And even the super, super good ones, you get your little sheet at the end saying, hey, what did you like this course? And it's like, oh, it was great. I wish I would have had salmon instead of steak, or, maybe a little more chocolate during the break.
Yeah.
I've given those courses myself.
Tell us the truth. Tell us how you really feel, please.
Well, they're not great. And then the biggest question my clients ask is, are the people learning what they're supposed to learn? And how do we know that? In our case, because we're teaching these softer skills, behavioral skills around innovation, the question is, can they apply them? And so everything we do is very more towards exercises, and we have them actually use what they learn in exercises and grade and give a personal feedback to everyone at scale. And that's part of the technology we have that allows us to give that feedback and see those learning cycles live as they go along. So that's for us, that's where we're trying to close that gap. The gap still exists, the gap will always exist. Different people, different backgrounds, just different interest levels.
Yeah.
But we try to figure out exactly how big that gap is and what do we need to do to close it.
Well, we're trying to close it all over the world. We're going to go from Zurich down to Mexico. Dominica Obando. Dominica has worked in government, nonprofits, and corporate positions. Now she's helping other LATAM software development talent land the best possible careers through her startup, Talently. So Dominica, how are you changing career accessibility through online learning?
Thanks for the question, Josh. I'm very happy to be here. Well, first, it's important to understand that Latin American tech talent is not having the same opportunities than others in developed economies. So basically, this means access to better salaries, access to quality of services in our region. And there are here a few gaps that are limiting them to take those jobs. And that's why I was so related with what Lily just shared with us. But one of them is language. For example, like once a person in Latin America has access to communicate fluently in English, like opportunities just 10x. This is huge barrier. But basically what we do at Talent is we train them to polish their English, soft skills, and maybe some technical reinforcement because they are already great technical talent. We help them to get great jobs, both in countries like US and developed economies. 30% of our students are tackling a US opportunity that they never had the opportunity before, because we help them how to go through interviews, how to get and capture cultural fit with US companies, how to, I just got distracted. How to go through interviews, how to have a LinkedIn, so US recruiters can get access to our profiles, how to communicate with them and others. And also we place them in top Latin American companies too, like Nubank, Rappi, some of the big. What is our thesis here is that everyone in the tech recruitment industry is very focused on the top 5% of talent, which means like the ones who already have English skills, the ones who already passed through a prestigious company, branded company. However, the other 95% is not taking advantage of this thriving startup ecosystem all around the world that is looking heavily for tech talent. So we're basically covering those gaps with education, with learning, with and another important thing, because we think our number one enemy is imposter syndrome. Like how to beat the imposter syndrome that happens with people all around the world, but specifically people in Latin America that feels we're not good enough compared to developed economies like people from Europe, from US. And second, there is tech talent that usually were not that outgoing or not that extroverted, so they feel they are not good enough all the time. So I think it's not only education, we're not very heavy in terms of content and education, but much more in terms of motivation and confidence in yourself.
No, you're really making the world flat. In Click2, our development team is actually based in Tbilisi in Georgia, which is not here, not in Israel, actually 2.5 hours flight. I took that flight last week. I was there. I met them. I think meeting in person people you work with is important from time to time, but now for sure, you could probably bring some great talent to all of this group. We can all probably recruit through you some great
I
talent.
would love to. Yeah, just reach me out. I will be very happy to help, because I know the talent are the ones who have like a huge gap of opportunity, but also is to empower companies to hire great talent, not at San Francisco prices, like and a price that makes sense to our companies to grow.
Yeah,
That's
and this is part, I think, if you succeed, and I'm pretty sure you will, because I see that you're going like that, moving like that direction everywhere. This is, I believe, part of the bigger change towards closing the gap, because people will start more and more work for other companies in other countries that makes the world flatter. Their children, their neighbors, their community will be involved in that. They'll know that this is happening. They'll feel that they're actually be a part of this bigger world. This is a big movement. I think we are, we are a small part in the revolution. But look at us, people from 6 different countries speaking about closing the gap and meeting in person in a few weeks. We are the change.
6 different countries, and I also saw Italy in the chat as well. So so far we know 7 different countries, but we're all getting together. Although I don't know about that person from Italy, but you should join us at ASU+GSV in April, early April in San Diego. We know that the EdTech world is expanding. The cash is flowing in, and with that cash comes responsibility. And with going to a conference that is as important comes responsibility for us as well as founders and CEOs. We got to make the most of it, because it's a real unique opportunity. So we're going to ask a few different questions of our panelists. We'll start with Domenica, because that's where we were. And here's a question for you. Who will you make sure you meet this year, other than us, at ASU+GSV?
You mean who I want to meet?
Yeah.
Other founders or investors?
Who you got your eye on? If you've downloaded that app, you're probably doing some roaming around to see, I want to meet that person. I want to get to know that person. Have you found that? Or in general, if you just want to meet founders, that's cool too.
For sure. I really admire a few funds like very interested in EdTech and future work, like Reach, Cabello, Rethink, and Owl. I have like a specific person in all of those funds that I'm for sure meeting. But especially extremely excited about who in the EdTech world we're going to meet there. I would love to know who are building the Talently in India, in Africa, and but very passionate about meeting the founders there and having some funds very close. Definitely.
You'll find those people. And the app, not to promote too much, but Dotan and I kind of geek out over the app before we get there and when you're there. So the app is a good place to learn. That's how we're prepping. Lily, how are you prepping for ASU+GSV right now?
Oh, okay. How am I prepping? I'm trying to be very intentional about meeting people ahead of time, at least connecting with them. I think that's been my number one goal, actually, to go to the GSV Cup. I went last year and it was a great experience. I met wonderful people. Now that I know what to expect, I'm like, okay, I got it down. I know what to do. I'm going to get ahead of the game. And I'm actually connected with one founder. Her name is Sari I believe she's from Finland, has a startup, and we connected already. And I'm actually very looking forward to meeting her. And, I think as founders, we learn from each other, right? And seeing what other people are doing. And even with what we're talking about, it's it helps you strategize, this is working for somebody else, that maybe it is something that could also work with the business model, or even key partnerships that might help leverage what we're talking about. But that's what I'm doing. Going back to your question, I am connecting with people ahead of time, like you guys. I cannot wait to meet some of you that might be joining. So this is part of it, I guess.
I think this is part of it. Dotan, I'm gonna throw that to you as well, because you're very strategic when it comes to planning for things like this. So why don't you tell the world kind of what you're thinking and will be doing to plan to have the best conference?
Wow. Hopefully to bring some more people with us because we're only two. Well, to me, I'm following the topics. There's the topic of metaverse and Web3 that we haven't discussed here at all. I don't know if anybody here is feeling part of this, but I'm very excited to learn about how people connect between educational concepts and technologies to the metaverse and Web3. I have my own initial thoughts about that, but I feel like this is going to be an interesting topic because this is a big buzzword, a few buzzwords and big waves that are part of current investments. So that's what I hope to discuss. And of course, yeah, just like Domenica and just like Lily, meeting founders, meeting investors, funds, getting ideas. Because last year, Josh, I don't remember, but we got some amazing ideas from people just by discussions that we were quick to implement right after we came back. So this is a very important point in time for us going to the conference.
I think some of those ideas we implemented that night. You know, we sat around after we had all these ideas. We're going to go out, we're going to meet people. We sat down and we took notes, and I think we immediately implemented them. So I want to ask Alan, name a specific way you are hoping to benefit from this year's conference.
Looking for a CTO.
Okay, put it out there. Yeah.
So dead startups is the best place to find top talent. So and you can't get to know the dead startups when they're dead. So you find them when they're still alive. So that's kind of a number one target. Second, inspiration, kind of exploration of what's in the market in other fields. We learn about education with children. We learn about developing, which is different from what we're doing, but how can we actually build on each other's knowledge? And third, we're not at this moment looking for investors, for profitable and self-funded, but kind of to understand what the dynamics are for that in the future for growth.
So hello to a future CTO to join a profitable and self-funded company. That sounds like a nice opportunity. So I do believe that you put stuff out in the world, it will come to you. So you're waving somewhere to your CTO. That's awesome. And hopefully that person will walk up to you in San Diego. It sounds like we have to do a follow-up conversation on that. So we will go to Raphael, and not sure if you've had a chance to kind of dive into the app, but has there been a specific panel that you have said, I don't care who wants to meet me, more or less, I got to go to this panel, I got to watch this panel? Is there one panel that's jumping out at you?
No, I can't actually say that I found that yet. I'm also going there primarily to meet with other companies. I'm very keen to form partnerships with companies around different parts of the world who want to bring our technology into their local market. We have different options of how that can work and integrate to the app, etc. So I think a lot of my focus will be just about meeting other people and other startups and connecting with them. Of course, I would take the chance to watch some inspirational panels and things along the way too. But I literally just got off the plane about an hour or two ago, coming back from another education conference in the US. So I was going to look at the app in more detail over the weekend.
One conference at a time, you know, makes perfect sense. Dotan, I haven't asked you this yet because we have to get through, we wanted to get through this webinar. Next week's webinar, we're going to talk about the future of the online educator. Admittedly so, that panel hasn't jumped out at me, but I haven't done too much research myself. Have you dove in and found some panels that are must see for us?
I need to do that work, be honest, but I did pin some sessions there, especially around Web3 and metaverse. It seems like a very big topic there. But the cool thing is that we are also going to be there for the second time, and like Lily and right? It's the first time for everybody else. And I feel like we can, you know, when you were planning to go there, even in the last few days before actually being there, you start coming up with a lot of questions. So I'll be very happy to be there for people who just want a quick answer about what's that and how's this going and should I be there? Should I put that in my calendar based on our experience from last year? It's exciting. It's probably going to be 2 times, maybe 3 times bigger than last year due to the no restrictions anymore, or kind of almost no restrictions. So it's going to be very, very big, maybe the biggest ever. So I really look forward to that.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that it's good. We've all been honest, that we haven't done too much research heading into the conference, hopefully because we all have been working on our businesses that are also trying to close the achievement gap. I saw Dominica with a nod and an eye roll. So like, yes, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing. Is that right?
Absolutely right. But after this phase, I definitely need to dive more in the conference and what's coming. But yeah, so exciting. I think it's going to be great.
It will be great. Let's hold ourselves accountable. Let's all promise, pinky swear, that we will dive in after this, because we did some important work here talking about the achievement gap. The real work takes place, obviously when the cameras are off and probably late at night. But we will be at ASU+GSV. We will be partnering up with people. The whole goal in this case to make online learning more accessible and close the achievement gap. And I think we're doing that. We at least are taking steps together forward based on this conversation. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Next week, we'll be talking about the future of the online educator. Please, the conversation does not have to end here. We have a really great Facebook group of educators who get together and talk and support each other. So if you can't meet us in San Diego, you can meet us online at our Facebook group, and let's all keep going together to close the achievement gap. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.